Welcome, dear friend. Tonight, you are not alone. The world may be heavy on your shoulders, but here, under the sound of rain and gentle words, you are safe. Take a deep breath. Let your chest rise and slowly fall. Feel the weight of the day drifting away, like leaves carried downstream by a quiet river. Tonight, I will tell you stories, strange stories, stories whispered across campfires, shared by families late at night and carried through the years. They are stories of shadows, of creatures hidden in the trees, of voices that do not always belong to the living. But do not be afraid, because these stories are not here to harm you. They are here to keep you company, to fill the long night with gentle wonder, and to guide you softly into the calm embrace of sleep. So close your eyes, let your body sink deeper into rest, and follow me now into the quiet woods of memory, where our first tale begins. Now, let us begin our first tale. It is a story wrapped in memory, a story that begins with childhood laughter and ends with a silence that was never explained. It is about a treehouse standing quietly in the woods, where children once played and where shadows later returned. What you are about to hear is not a tale of monsters roaring or endless terror, but a quiet story of a family, a father, and the night when the forest revealed something it wished to keep hidden. So breathe slowly, let your mind drift among the trees, and come with me back to the days of childhood, when the treehouse still stood strong and the forest still welcomed us. So, like many people, I suppose, I've spent a great deal of my life running through the woods. At least I did when I was young. Barefoot, of course, since nobody wore shoes in those days. At least I don't remember doing so. When I was a child, the forest was my playground. Every morning, as the sun rose and painted the sky with soft gold, my brothers, my sisters, and I would run into the trees, laughing, shouting, chasing one another through grass still wet with dew. The woods were not just trees and shadows to us. They were alive. Every branch that swayed in the wind, every bird that took flight, every distant rustle in the underbrush felt like a friend whispering secrets. And at the heart of those woods, we built a treehouse. It was not much, just crooked planks nailed together, a ladder made from rope and old wood, and to us, it was a fortress. From its small windows, we could see the sun spill across the treetops, or the moon rise in silence, casting silver light upon the earth. That treehouse was where we told stories, shared candy, and pretended to be kings and queens, protectors of our wooden castle. Sometimes we'd stay there until dusk, watching the sky turn purple, our eyes wide with wonder. But one evening changed everything. One evening when the sky was the color of old blood, and the wind whispered through the leaves like a mournful song, my father returned home from hunting. He was a strong man, a hunter who knew the land well. His bow was a magic wand that brought down deer with unfailing accuracy. His knife, a mere flick of his wrist, skinned and cut meat with practiced ease. But that night, he came home with his shoulders slumped and his eyes downcast. His shirt was stained dark with blood. Not his own, but something else's. When I asked what had happened, he grew quiet. His eyes darkened, his mouth pressed into a line. Then he said, I saw something tonight that I should not have seen, something that makes this place unsafe for us. The woods are no longer safe. From that day forward, he never hunted again. The thought of what might be lurking just beyond our sight filled him with such dread that he chose to stay within the safety of our village, choosing instead to fish in the river that ran through our settlement. And for us children, the forest was forbidden. We were not allowed to go there anymore. The memory of my father's haunted eyes and grim words kept us away. We stood at the edge of the trees and called out to the woods, but only the wind answered, rustling through the leaves like a reply. The branches that once beckoned to us now loomed like silent sentinels guarding secrets best left undisturbed. And the treehouse, our treehouse, became a forbidden's memory. I can still remember the taste of the sweet berries we used to pick, the feel of the sun-warmed wood beneath our feet, the sound of our laughter echoing through the trees. It all feels like a dream now, a half-remembered story from a world that feels both familiar and strange. One day, many years later, I returned to the village after a long absence. The houses were much as I remembered, but the forest was different. It seemed darker, more foreboding, as if it had been holding its breath. I walked to the edge of the trees and stared into the deepening shadows. I wanted to see if the woods were still there, if they remembered me, if they still held the secrets I had left behind. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I turned and walked away, leaving the silent woods to their ancient wisdom. I do not know whatever lurked in those woods that night so many years ago, nor do I wish to know. But sometimes at night, when the wind whispers through my window and the shadows stretch long and thin, I hear a faint sound, the echoed children's laughter carried on the breeze. And for a moment, the forest is my playground once more. The years passed. The treehouse grew older. Its wood darkened by rain and sun, its rope ladder frayed by wind. And yet in our memories, it was still alive, a place waiting, a secret calling us back. I was 15 the night we answered that call. It was Halloween, and the world outside seemed filled with mystery. Pumpkins glowed on porches. Children dressed as witches and ghosts ran from door to door. But for us, candy and costumes were not enough. My brother, my friends, and I wanted something more daring, something that would prove we were no longer children. So we made a plan. We would return to the treehouse. Just for one night, one last adventure. We told no one. Not our mother. Not our father, whose silence about the woods still hung heavy in the house. When the sun fell, we slipped away. Our flashlights flickered in the dark, thin beams against the vastness of the forest. The air was colder than I remembered, and every sound seemed sharper. The snap of twigs, the crunch of leaves, the distant cry of an owl. What was once a 10-minute walk now stretched endlessly. Each step felt slower, as if the forest itself had grown larger, or perhaps we had grown smaller. The path we knew so well seemed unfamiliar. Trees leaned closer, branches stretched like arms, and the darkness between them felt deeper than before. Still, we pressed on. There was laughter at first, nervous, shaky laughter, as we tried to convince one another that this was only a game. At last, the treehouse appeared. Its shape rose out of the shadows, small and crooked, but standing strong. My chest tightened at the sight of it, a mixture of joy and unease. We climbed the ladder one by one. The rope creaked, the wood groaned, but it held. Inside, the air smelled of dust and pine. Our old treasures were still there. Plastic soldiers, toy cars, missing wheels, faded comics. They had waited for us, as if no time had passed. We lit candles, set them in little circles, and the shadows danced across the walls. For a while, we forgot our fear. We told jokes. We played cards. We ate candy we had saved from earlier that night. In that small wooden room, we felt like children again, safe, hidden from the world. But then the forest reminded us it was still there. It began with a sound, a scream. It tore through the night, sharp and sudden. It was not the cry of an owl, not the bark of a fox, not even the voice of a man. It was something else, something raw, something broken, as if the forest itself had opened its mouth and let out a cry of pain. We froze. Our laughter died. The candles flickered. For a moment, none of us moved. We only sat, staring at one another, our ears straining against the silence that followed. The scream did not return. The woods felt quiet again, but the quiet was worse than sound. It pressed against us, thick and heavy, like the air before a storm. One of my friends whispered, "It was just an animal." But even as he spoke, his voice shook. Because we all knew no animal makes a sound like that, still we tried to pretend. We turned our flashlights back on. We forced nervous smiles. We told ourselves the forest was the same as it had always been. But deep inside, we felt it, a shift, a presence, something unseen, waiting just beyond the circle of our light. And that was how the night of Halloween began. Not with costumes, not with candy, but with a scream in the woods, a scream that still echoes in my memory, even now. If you enjoyed this spooky story, please like the video. Thanks for watching. In the chilling depths of a timeless forest, nestled amidst ancient trees that held secrets older than time itself, stood a weathered treehouse. It was a sanctuary of sorts for a group of friends, a refuge where laughter echoed and fears were momentarily forgotten. But on this particular night, the laughter had turned to screams, and the sanctuary had become a prison of terror. The scream faded into silence, but the echo of it seemed to linger in our chests. We sat in the treehouse, our candles trembling, the shadows on the walls stretching long and thin. For a while, no one spoke. The only sound was our breathing shallow, uneven, as though even the air in the room was afraid. I tried to laugh, to say it was nothing, but the sound caught in my throat. It felt wrong, like laughing in a graveyard. The forest outside was silent. The kind of silence that makes your ears ache, that makes your skin prickle. One of my friends whispered, "Maybe we should go," but no one moved. The treehouse had once been our fortress, our safe place. And though the scream still echoed in our minds, we clung to that memory of safety. We told ourselves nothing could reach us up here. We were above the ground. We were safe. Still, the silence pressed closer, and then the smell came. It was faint at first, a sour note carried on the air, but it grew stronger, heavier, until it filled the room. It was the smell of decay, of something rotten, like meat left too long in the sun, mixed with the sharp bite of copper. It made my stomach twist. I covered my nose with my sleeve, but it didn't help. The stench clung to the air, thick and inescapable. My brother's eyes met mine. He didn't speak, but I saw the fear there. He smelled it too. One of my friends muttered, "It's just an animal carcass." But his voice shook, and we all knew it was more than that. Because along with the smell came the feeling, that heavy weight of being watched, not from far away, not from the deep woods, but close, very close. Every hair on my arm stood on end. I felt it in the back of my neck, like invisible eyes fixed on me, following every breath, every heartbeat. Someone reached for a flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness outside the window, but it showed nothing, only trees, only shadows. Not the scream, not the silence, but something softer. A shuffle, a step, the faintest crunch of leaves beneath weight. It circled us, around the treehouse, slow, deliberate, like a predator deciding how best to strike. The floorboards seemed to shake beneath us. Our candles flickered, as if they too were afraid. And all the while, the smell thickened, rot, death, decay. I closed my eyes, telling myself it was not real, that it was only the power of stories, of our own imagination. But deep down, I knew better. Something was out there. Something that did not belong. With each passing moment, the terror grew, seeping into our bones, chilling us to the core. What horrors lurked in those dark woods? What evil had been awakened? Trapped in the suffocating darkness of the treehouse, we waited, we watched, we listened. The night stretched on, an eternity of fear. As the first rays of dawn pierced through the canopy, chasing away the oppressive darkness, we stumbled out of the treehouse, our faces pale, our eyes wide with the lingering terror of the night. The forest around us seemed to hold its breath, the trees standing like silent sentinels guarding their secrets. We fled, each of us seeking the solace of our separate homes, the memory of the night before heavy in our hearts. And so the legend of the haunted treehouse was born, a tale whispered around campfires, a warning to those who dare to venture into the dark embrace of the ancient woods. This is a creepy pasta. The smell of decay clung to the air, heavy and suffocating. Outside, the slow crunch of footsteps circled us, sometimes near, sometimes drifting farther, but never leaving. We sat frozen in the treehouse, hearts pounding, hands gripping the old wooden boards. The rope ladder swayed gently in the night breeze, as if inviting something or someone to climb. I whispered to my brother, "We need to leave." But no one wanted to move. To step outside meant to step into the dark, into the smell, into the unseen eyes that followed us. The treehouse felt like the last small island of safety. Finally, my younger brother stood. "I'll go first," he said. His voice was small but steady. We tried to stop him, but he had already taken the flashlight. He placed one foot on the rope ladder, then another, descending slowly. The wooden rungs creaked under his weight. We leaned out the window, watching the small circle of his flashlight bob against the ground below. Then came the sound. A breath, low, wet, right beneath us. We pulled back into the treehouse, hearts racing. The smell grew stronger, so thick it burned our throats. Another friend began climbing down, perhaps out of panic, perhaps thinking there was safety in numbers. His flashlight beam swept across the trees, and that was when we saw it. At first, we thought it was a deer, tall, thin, standing at the edge of the clearing, but its face was not right. The flesh was torn away, hanging in strips. Its mouth stretched too wide, teeth long and sharp, glistening in the pale light. Its eyes were empty sockets, black and endless. The moment our light touched it, the creature tilted its head, as though curious. Then it took a step forward, slow, deliberate. The smell was unbearable now. Rot, death, the weight of the grave itself. "Run," I whispered down to my brother. "Run, get Dad." His flashlight beam swung wildly, then disappeared into the trees. We heard his footsteps fading quickly into the night. For a moment, hope flickered, but it vanished just as fast. Because beneath us, the rope ladder began to move, not from the wind, not from my friends, but from something climbing. The boards of the treehouse groaned. The nails rattled in their holes. Every breath caught in our throats. Slowly, a pale, rotted hand appeared on the edge of the floor. Its fingers were long, ending in cracked nails. The skin hung loose, like rags around bone. It was coming inside. And then the night exploded. A gunshot split the silence, loud, sharp. The hand jerked back. Another shot, then another. Each one tearing through the dark, each one pushing the creature away. The shriek that followed was unlike anything I had ever heard. High and hollow, a sound that made the forest itself shudder, and then silence again. We rushed to the window. Below, my father stood with his rifle raised, smoke curling from the barrel. Beside him was my younger brother, alive, eyes wide with terror. "Come down," my father called, his voice steady, though his face was pale. One by one, we climbed down the rope ladder. The ground felt unsteady beneath our feet, as though the earth itself had shifted. Together we ran home. No one looked back. That night, my father said nothing, not about what he saw, not about what he shot at, not about what might still be waiting in the woods. He only held us close, his arms strong, his silence heavier than words. From that night on, we never returned to the treehouse. It stood alone in the forest, a ghost of our childhood, a reminder of what we had seen. And though the forest kept its secrets, we understood one thing. Silence is not always emptiness. Sometimes silence is warning,